It's been 8 months since the release of Alan Wake 2. It was an awesome game, but left fans with many questions. Then we got New Game Plus, which altered the narrative slightly and gave a true ending to the game. First off, before we begin, I want to say a massive thank you to Epic Games for sponsoring this video. On the 8th of June, the first of 2 DLCs for Alan Wake 2 dropped, with both DLCs being part of the Alan Wake 2 Deluxe upgrade. Night Springs itself features 3 different stories, or episodes if you like, which feature 3 very familiar characters from the Remedy connected universe. Still there as part of the gameplay are the creepy minions of Mr. Scratch and the Taken, but Rose's fully auto shotgun makes light work of them. The episodes also feature familiar locations from the base game with interesting twists. The other obvious feature and the reason you are here is that this DLC also expands the lore into Alan's attempts to escape from the dark place. This DLC was a lot of fun, so make sure you experience it for yourselves by upgrading to the deluxe version of Alan Wake 2 now in order to access the expansion content for yourselves using the link in the description. Now before we begin, please note that there will be story spoilers in this video for Alan Wake and Control 2, but with all that being said, let's jump in. To start, we'll look at Alan's situation. During a stay in Bright Falls, Alan's wife was dragged into Cauldron Lake, which contained within it some sort of dark power called the Dark Presence. He dives in after her. Waking up a week later, Alan discovers that he was forced by the Dark Presence into writing a novel called Departure, which he has no collection of writing, and that novel has been changing the town and its surroundings, and not for the better either. Long story short, the novel Departure was a ruse by the Dark Presence to try and engineer its own escape from Cauldron Lake. Alan eventually gave himself up to the Dark Presence so that his wife Alice could escape Cauldron Lake and the Dark Place. Alan then goes on a journey through the Dark Place, desperately trying to work out how to escape with the help of a man in a diving suit named Tom Zane, but concedes, eventually sitting down at his typewriter and starts to write a new story. It's thought that the 3 episodes that make up the Night Springs DLC take place before the events of the second game. Effectively, they are all failed attempts written up by Alan in his attempts to escape. But let's look at each individual episode along with what the episodes could possibly mean for the larger overall narrative. In the town of Night Springs, a waitress is freshening up in the restroom of Night's Diner. She is giving herself a pep talk and talking about an unnamed writer. She's clearly a big fan of this writer. She sees this writer as her destiny and says that she doesn't mind how that destiny arrives, only that it eventually does. Leaving the restroom, the waitress heads into the diner and fills up her customers' mugs with coffee, offering them advice on their problems and concerns in life. One customer wants a good book recommendation, so the waitress recommends a book written by the writer. Heading to the back to get it, the bass on the wall speaks to her, and it's the voice of her darling writer. He says that he needs help, and that only his #1 fan can save him. So the waitress, with a nifty and heavily stocked armory in the kitchen, because why not, arms up and leaves the diner, cheered on by her loyal patrons, and running down the street, positive messages are displayed all over. In the boatyard, the waitress speaks with someone who looks just like her writer. He says that he's the writer's estranged twin brother, and he seems to harbour a lot of ill feeling towards his brother. The man explains that he locked the writer somewhere that the waitress will never find him. He explains that he has an army of people who hate the writer, critics. The waitress hates the writer's critics. The man speeds off on his bike and the waitress fights off the critics. With them all gone, she fights her way to a cabin and hears the voice of the writer. However, she's been tricked. It's the bad boy. It seems that the bad boy had subjected the writer to some light torture. Speaking with him, he says that he feels overshadowed by his brother. The waitress scolds the man until the man gives in and says that he never had the writer, that he was just keeping the waitress occupied whilst his friends storm the writer's mansion. The man speeds off again. Following the flaming tire tracks, the waitress spots a deer.
I knew you, my #1 fan, would never fall victim to my twisted brother's lies. His hatred for me is as inexplicable as the sunrise, and just as fiery. But I knew your heart would never waver. You're the only one who can save me. I believe in you.
Arriving at the mansion with an even stronger sense of purpose and determination, the waitress finds the man sitting at the entrance. A fight breaks out between the two, with the man throwing various hazards at the waitress, including his wolf pack. Eventually, she defeats the man but refuses to kill him. After some self-reflection, the man realizes that he hates himself and not his brother. Storming the mansion, the waitress kills the attacking critics and she enters the writer's room.
And there he was. After all the fighting, we were finally alone. Together. Our love was written in the stars. And so we danced like two spinning planets that would eventually crash into each other in a dazzling display of flames and rocks and other planet stuff. He told me all the sweet things I'd been waiting a lifetime to hear. I saw myself reflected in his eyes. I would always be at his side, to inspire and protect him. He needed me, now and forever. After all, I am his #1 fan.
Alright, so although this waitress's name isn't mentioned, it's pretty clear that the waitress is based on Rose Marigold, the waitress who works at the Oh Dear Diner and the Valhalla nursing home. Since there are no manuscript pages to collect, we have to come to our own conclusions. Alan, of course, knew of Rose's affection for him and her devotion to him, so it's likely that he wrote this episode and focused on Rose's determination to save him should his life be in danger. The world it's set in is pretty much Bright Falls and its surrounding forest, and everything is seen through the perspective of Rose. By that I mean there's a pink, whimsical element and a 50s style to it. Rose is seen as guru-like, offering advice up to her patrons. From motivation to dating advice, she calls herself the protector of Night Springs. The bad boy is obviously based on Mr. Scratch, who wants to kill his more successful twin brother, who is Alan, of course. The critics attacking are the Taken, who of course are the puppets of the Dark Presence. And then there's the mansion. The writer Alan supposedly has a mansion, which in the base game is the Valhalla nursing home, but used to be the home of Tom Zane. A note sits on a table outlining ideas for books, one of those ideas strikingly similar to this Night Springs episode. This was one attempt by Alan to write himself an escape from the dark place, but this did not work. Another of Alan's attempts sees a red-haired woman arriving at a place called Coffee World. She mentions her brother and an agency that doesn't want anyone knowing more than what they see. She mentions that her brother had been taken, and that this agency has been chasing her for years. Joined by a strange and otherworldly companion which provides help, the sibling gains access to the park and dark, mysterious figures stand around. The sibling comes across a sheriff standing in the light, telling the sibling that the figures don't like the light. He says that the government has been putting something in the coffee and turning people into coffee monsters. The sibling thinks that this may be the same government agency that has been chasing her, and the sheriff calls this deep state science. The sheriff gives the sibling a gun and flashlight and tells her to check out a warehouse, but he mentions something important. Do not drink the coffee. The sibling goes to the warehouse but discovers that she needs to watch a videotape in order to get an answer to bypass a security check. Finding the videotape, she watches it, but it has some sort of brainwashing effect on her. Thankfully, her companion helps her and saves her from its effects. Nonetheless, she got the passphrase needed to correctly answer the question. But then, she needs another answer. This one involves some maths, but gaining that answer too sees her need to do one more thing. She needs to drink the coffee. With no other option, she drinks the coffee, and again, her companion saves her from its strange effects. Outside the warehouse, she hears the sheriff fighting some of the dark figures, and speaking to him, he says that he got some coffee in his mouth but that he'll be fine. Now being able to enter the warehouse, she has to hide from and avoid a coffee mascot. But entering the offices in the warehouse, she comes across the sheriff. That coffee that went in his mouth didn't do him any good, as he's become a servant to the coffee, telling the sibling that she should drink it. Heading down a ladder, the sibling enters into a strange area featuring odd geometric shapes on the walls. Further in, the sibling descends and sees her brother, except it's not her brother, it's Alan. His containment unit is surrounded by thermos flasks, and this was another attempt by Alan to write himself out of the dark place, but this didn't work either. Now, as with the previous episode, it's clear that the sibling is Jesse Faden, but again, it's not, and we'll dive into that shortly. You'll remember from Control that the whole reason that Jesse Faden went to the oldest house in New York City was a result of her tracking down her brother Dylan, and that both Jesse and Dylan, and Alan for that matter, are all what are termed as para-utilitarians by the Federal Bureau of Control. She also has a strange alien companion, the North Star, and another name for the North Star is Polaris, which of course is the name of Jesse's companion in Control. When Jesse found Dylan in Control, he was, similar to Alan in this Night Springs episode, contained. Alan at the end of the episode said that he'd forgot to tell her about a dream he had, which is something that Dylan actually said to Jesse in Control.
I was in a dark place. and there was a dark man there. His name was Mr. Door, and he told me that there are many worlds, side by side, on top of each other, some inside of others. In one world, there was a writer who wrote a story about a cop. In another world, the cop was real. Door said he himself was in all of them at the same time, endlessly shifting between them.
As for the coffee, well, it's a new blend called Dark as the Void. It's based around strange triangles. As for its makeup, well, it could be that the water being used to brew the coffee comes from Cauldron Lake, and could be why people are turning into, as the sheriff puts it, coffee monsters. The weirdness around the coffee is noted as being something called the percolation, a cult called the Dark Triangle movement. Similar to how the cult of the tree left stashes around Bright Falls and Watery, the percolation are doing the same thing here. If the sibling opens these stashes prior to drinking the coffee, then these symbols won't make any sense. However, after drinking the coffee, they show creepy messages. It could be that the Dark Triangle movement worship coffee, and we all know how much Sam Lake loves his coffee. Now, the thing about the Dark Triangles is also significant, as we saw the Koskela brothers drawing these triangles too. They saw the Dark Triangle that made up part of the FBC, and two triangles stacked on top of each other made up the symbol for the Cult of the Tree, and the board in control is seen as a dark upside down triangle. Alan is basically referred to by this cult as the Mug. This note explains him being locked behind a door. The third and, well, probably not final episode Alan wrote went as follows. Warning, this one gets pretty wacky. Actor Shawn Ashmore is shooting a scene for a video game about a multiverse for Poison Pill Entertainment, and the FMV video game is called Timebreaker. They cut, and the director, Sam Lake, wishes to speak with the actor. He thinks they can make the story crazier. He explains about the actor's character that he's a multiversal agent and that he has a gadget called a polyhedron reality shifter, or a PRS, that can help him travel to different realities after it's been charged by a shifter energy node, or an SEN. After their chat, the actor heads towards his dressing room and hears a sound.
No! This is your end.
What the fuck was that? Hello?
The actor is shocked to find that there's someone who looks a lot like him dead in his dressing room. He is so shocked that he immediately puts this down to a prank by Sam. A script lies on the ground and it's explaining exactly what's happening and what just happened. After picking up the PRS, a red-haired woman shows up and tells the actor that he got another one of them, saying that she arrived too late. Again. She expresses concern that the actor is not someone called Agent Branch. The lights flicker and the actor is pulled into another reality. He ends up in the forest. He hears an echo. It's another version of himself, frantically saying that he needs to hide some energy away from a trailer. He eventually comes across the energy node and charges the PRS, and he hears Door coming for him. Running back to the trailer, seeing another version of himself dead, the actor uses the PRS next to the TV and rides the vortex to another reality, this time to the Ocean View Motel. The actor sees flashes of wall and door, and has to make his way through various doors, shifting through otherworldly realities to firstly find the energy node, and then to use the PRS on the TV in order to travel to yet another reality. But the actor finds that something is different. His thoughts are different. They are flowing freely. He's at the Ripple Effect Corporation, the people who made the PRS device. He feels the echoes of the other versions of himself that made it there. He sees and speaks with the red-headed woman. She explains that Door pulled him away beforehand, and she also explains that real and not real exist side by side in the multiverse, that in one reality they are not even real because they are simply characters in a video game. Then, the woman explains about Door.
Why is he after me? Who is Door?
There are legends about him going back further than we can trace. They say he found an opening to a horrifying parallel reality that consumed him, gave him access to all realities. The feedback loop killing all other versions of him.
I am on the threshold. No. That door! Everywhere!
We don't know why, but he sees the versions of you as a threat. He's killing them, bringing them back as time breakers. We thought he was after Branch. Now I'm thinking he's been after you.
Turn your lines. Fade apart. The master of many worlds. We came through the door.
All right. What can I do?
He must be stopped. He leaves dead realities in his way, and he is only picking up speed.
I'm just an actor.
You could have fooled me. You travel through realities with greater accuracy than anyone I've ever seen. Beyond door, even. You picked it up just like that. Finding the place that made him may be the key to killing him. That was our theory. But we could never find it. Maybe you can.
Was there something between you and Branch?
What you think you are feeling is just an echo. Some other version of us in some other lifetime.
But maybe...
You'll come back for me? Maybe.
Wish me luck.
Luck is just an echo of an event carried over from another reality.
I was an REC agent. This was my mission now. I focused on him. The darkness, the entropy, Door. The master of many worlds.
The actor, after fighting many time breakers who had been sent by Door to kill the actor, then travels via the vortex and ends up in a desert. He's at the edge of the multiverse, a dark place that is being held together by some pale word on a dark page. Moving towards the light, the actor finds another energy node, and fighting more time breakers, the actor heads towards a glow in the distance, towards the TV, and he travels via the vortex again. Entering into another reality, he's in a reality now where words exist and nothing else. The actor finds himself in a dark void. Trying to focus on something, the actor remembers his mission. He can either focus on the master of many worlds, or he can attempt to try and go back to the red-headed woman. Whatever he chooses, the actor obtains either a spiral pendant or a branch from the Tree of Life, and uses either of these things to gain access to a door. Opening the door, the actor comes face to face with the master of many worlds. But he hasn't. The actor has taken a wrong turn. It's not the master of many worlds, it's Alan Wake, sat at his typewriter in his writer's room. This was another failed attempt by Alan to write his way out of the dark place. Okay, so that final episode opens up a whole new realm of possibilities.
Night Springs, a special place, a shifting space, existing in a countless number of parallel realities. Sometimes a quaint small town, sometimes a hulking metropolis. Different every time we set upon the road that leads us there. And yet, like a half-remembered echo of a fading dream, always familiar to us. These are the stories that take place there. Awe-inspiring, macabre, terrifying, heartbreaking, nail-biting, absurd, and thrilling. Sometimes all of these things at once.
But Mr. Door is obviously in charge of the multiverse since he's trying to eliminate anything he sees as a threat. We even see this during Alan's time in the dark place where Mr. Door gets angry with him.
We can stop pretending now.
Masks come off.
Oh, I wouldn't go that far. You keep opening doors, peeking in, reaching through to get what you want, and that puts you in my path.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Episode 3 was the most mind-bending since it explores the concept of the multiverse. Instead of playing someone who is Tim Breaker, we play as the real-life actor Shawn Ashmore, who is being directed by Sam Lake for a role in a video game. Very meta. Director Sam explains to the actor at one point that the character he plays is a multiversal agent who goes by many names, as there are many versions of him. Some of these names are Sheriff Tim Breaker and Agent Branch, and Sam says that the actor's character is searching for his lost love, whilst his nemesis Door hunts him across different realities. The Master of Many Worlds is chasing him and murdering these other versions of him, as he deems them a threat. It's similar to how Tim Breaker got pulled into the dark place. Given that it's a multiverse, Alan is possibly contributing to influencing and changing the realities of different worlds, and since those worlds aren't conforming to the rules of the Dark Place, those other worlds are simply being erased. So Alan just uses a different world for a new story, like a blank page, but the echoes from these other worlds remain. I guess we could say this is why Dor seems so angry with Alan, due to his opening many doors to different realities and peeking inside. The stories have to be tied to an already existing urban legend, and we see this is how Alan wrote Return in order to orchestrate his, and Scratch's, escape, by tying the horror story to the urban legends such as the witch who killed the sheriff near Cauldron Lake, Huatari Well, and the girl drowning in the bunker. The multiverse tells us that there are different versions of the same person existing in different realities. Episode 1's waitress is not the same Rose Marigold that we see in the game, although I'd imagine that her and Alan's romance now exists in many players' headcanons, and they'll want to believe that this actually happened. That's a joke, by the way. The sibling we see in episode 2 is not the Jesse Faden we see in Control, and likely not the same redhead woman we see in The Dark Place on the TV when Alan is with Tom Zane. Nor is she Beth Wilder from, that other game. It's possible that the red-headed woman on the TV is searching for Tim Breaker, or possibly some other version of him, but that's just a theory. And finally, the actor we see in episode 3 is not the Tim Breaker we see in the main game, as we've already explained. Mr. Dor at the start of episode 3 says that for the actor, the magnetic pull of destiny is so great that it breaks time and space, but all of these versions of the actor all share memories. This is best seen through the boards that these versions of him write on. There's the board in episode 3 where one version of him writes about who Mr. Dor is, who the Master of Many Worlds is, and about the red-headed woman. And Tim Breaker also writes boards like this in The Dark Place in the base game. The actor, when he gets to the forest, says that there are gaps in his memory. He also says that he hears their thoughts when these other versions die, and we indeed see and hear that in episode 3. He also says that he's being connected to them via their dreams, and this is something he mentions to Alan whilst in the Dark Place. He's slowly filling in these gaps in his memory, and he's forming everything he needs to know about Dor. It's probable that the chosen one is Tim Breaker. Another interesting thing is that in episode 3, in the trailer, there's a drawing of a spiral with a clear end point. Next to this drawing is a book on UFOs. Now, in the base game, Tim Breaker has an interest in UFOs and aliens, and in the Cauldron Lake Woods, Saga finds a book and notepad belonging to Tim. Really, Tim has been trying to spot shapes, such as these. He wrote about someone watching him, and this is obviously Mr. Dor. During a conversation with Alan, he says this.
Sounds like you've been having a rough go. I've been there. The missing time, the aliens.
Missing time?
It's the same thing I've been saying. The dreams. Sometimes I wake up in a completely different place, missing entire days. I have no idea what happened, but I'm trying to find out. Things always get better if you just keep moving forward, Alan.
Wait, what's this about aliens?
I was just convinced that everything going on with me was because of aliens. Abductions, signals beamed into my head, that kind of thing. Now I know it's been Dor all along. I haven't ruled out him being an alien, though.
The actor says that if he focuses on someone when he enters the vortex, he's able to reach that person. He focused on Dor when entering one vortex, and that took him to Ocean View Motel. When he focused on the red-headed woman, he ended up with her at the Ripple Effect Corporation. One thing to note is that Atty, the janitor, was there at the Ripple Effect headquarters too, leading me to believe that the Ripple Effect Corporation is just an other reality oldest house. But I don't think Atty is subject to this many realities and many versions thing. I believe there's only one Atty, but that during the base game he's actually trapped in Alan's stories just like everyone else. He's able to exist in Bright Falls and Watery, the oldest house, the Ripple Effect Corporation and the Dark Place, and he also appears in the Words Only reality during one of the endings of episode 3, saying he's going to keep a box full of the actor's Ripple Effect Corporation equipment safe if he decides to pack it away. Speaking of boxes, the Angel lamp works in a similar way to the PRS device. Alan, when using the lamp, is switching between different realities. The whole Master of Many Worlds thing is something that I'd imagine will evolve over time, but we're still not really any closer to finding out who Warlin Dor is in regard to Saga Anderson, as the going theory is that she's Dor's daughter. One thing that is certain are the links to the other games in the RCU that Remedy are unable to outright say are linked due to IP ownership issues. I am of course talking about Quantum Break and Max Payne, but the latter isn't really relevant to this discussion. This is outlined by the fact that the actor says it's great to be working with Sam again, and they reference making another game with FMV in it, and Quantum Break has FMV scenes in it. It's clear that one of the other versions of this character is also Jack Joyce from Quantum Break, and Jack Joyce has a romantic interest in Beth, the redhead woman too, but of course, IP ownership. This is essentially why the versions of Sean say that they know the redheaded woman, because the other version of them have already met in another reality, and the redheaded woman says that the other version of her, one was killed in an explosion of energy, one gained powers, and one met a guardian angel. The actor also felt an echo that something happened between the redheaded woman and Agent Branch, and one of these echoes is the relationship between Jack Joyce and Beth Wilder. This multi-universe, multi-person thing also extends to Shawn Ashmore, Tim Breaker, Agent Branch and Jack Joyce, Jesse Faden, the redheaded woman, the sibling and Beth Wilder, Sam Lake, Alex Casey and Max Payne, and of course Tom Zane, Alan Wake and Mr. Scratch. To finish, I'm not sure how Control connects into this, but as we're going to get Control 2 at some point, we'll just have to wait to find out. I guess a simplified answer to all of this is that in our reality, these characters aren't real, they're in video games, but in the characters' reality they are, and there are multiple realities and versions of these people, and these represent the different games in the Remedy connected universe. I hope this video helped to decipher some of the absolutely wild revelations that this DLC, mainly Episode 3, dropped on us. These were just ruminations of the things rattling around in my head after finishing playing the DLCs. All I can do now is eagerly await the Lake House DLC, which should be coming fairly soon. If you enjoyed the video, then please leave a like on it, comment your thoughts down below and subscribe if you are not already. But for now, take care and I will see you in the next one.